Gold has always been more than metal. For thousands of years, it has been the closest thing humanity has to a God you can touch. Unchanging, untarnished, eternal. Kings were buried with it, temples were covered in it, and entire empires rose and fell over its gleam.
It outlasted every currency, every kingdom, and every ideology. But imagine a world where that belief suddenly disappears, where vaults are full, markets are calm, and no one cares. The gold still shines, but it means nothing.
The story of gold is really the story of faith, not in religion, but in permanence. The first humans who picked up a golden nugget saw something that never rusted while everything else around them decayed. They didn't just see metal, they saw time frozen, beauty preserved. Ancient Egyptians lined their tombs with it to promise immortality. Greek philosophers called it the perfect substance. In the Middle Ages, alchemists wasted lifetimes trying to create it, chasing not wealth, but the illusion of divine mastery. Centuries later, the world found a new way to worship. Gold became the foundation of modern money, the invisible backbone of global trust. Every dollar, every pound, every yen was once a promise whispered in gold's name. You can trade this paper because somewhere a vault holds your faith. When the Bretton Woods system collapsed in 1971, that promise was broken. Gold no longer backed our currencies. Yet oddly, its power didn't fade. It grew. Even without official backing, central banks kept hoarding it. Investors still ran to it when the world shook. Wars, recessions, pandemics, all reminders that belief never really dies. It just hides until fear calls it back. The strange truth is, gold has survived every age, not because it's rare, but because we can't stop believing in something that doesn't change. And that's where our story begins, not with miners or kings, but with the question of belief itself. What if one day humanity simply moved on? If gold's glow stopped stirring our hearts, would the world collapse, or would we finally be free from its reflection? To understand why gold still holds our imagination, we need to look at how belief became economics. After the collapse of Bretton Woods, governments quietly unchained their money from gold, but people didn't. The symbol was too deep. In times of panic, markets still turn to that ancient shine. Politicians may promise recovery, central banks may print confidence, but when fear spreads, investors reach for the same answer humanity has trusted since the pharaohs, the metal that doesn't rot. Yet gold's meaning has changed. Once a divine symbol, it is now a psychological reflex, a modern myth disguised as an investment. We no longer keep it for what it does, but for what it means. Safety, certainty, control. Economists can chart prices and supply, but not belief. That part lives in the collective pulse of fear and hope that defines every market crash and recovery. The paradox is that gold became more powerful when it stopped being necessary. The less it connected to the real economy, the more it represented emotion itself, a mirror of human insecurity. Its price is a mood swing, a pulse check of global anxiety. When we're calm, it rests. When we panic, it climbs. This is where the story turns philosophical. What we call value might just be a story we tell ourselves. Once, that story was printed on gold. Today, it's encoded in data, a string of digits on blockchain, or a graph rising on a phone screen. Gold, Bitcoin, even social status, all are different ways to translate faith into form. The difference is that gold has weight. You can hold it. It resists time, fire, and governments. But even that tangibility is a kind of illusion. It means nothing without our agreement that it means something. Somewhere in a dark vault,
Trillions of dollars worth of gold lies still, serving no function, producing nothing, waiting for belief to flow back into it. It's the quietest economy in the world, one built entirely on silence and trust. And that brings us to the modern era, where gold no longer needs temples or kings to stay sacred. It only needs us to keep worrying. In the modern marketplace, gold competes not with silver or oil, but with imagination. The new currencies are digital, abstract, almost spiritual. Codes, clouds, and numbers that live nowhere yet decide everything. Bitcoin calls itself digital gold, a phrase that perfectly captures how belief evolves but never disappears. The same psychology that once drew miners into mountains now drives coders into cyberspace. The same hunger for permanence, the same distrust of institutions, the same quiet terror of chaos, it all hides behind different screens. But unlike digital assets that can vanish with a password, gold is stubborn. It doesn't crash or reboot. It sits, waiting for us to remember why we once loved it. That immobility is both its power and its curse. You can't innovate gold. You can only rediscover it. It doesn't grow interest or replicate. It simply exists, radiating a calm indifference to every boom and bust. In a world obsessed with acceleration, that stillness feels sacred. And so, gold remains the mirror of our collective psyche. Its price is a confession of what we fear most: inflation, collapse, uncertainty. When the world is stable, we ignore it. When the world shakes, we whisper its name again. This cycle of forgetting and rediscovery turns gold into a psychological metronome for civilization. Yet beneath all the worship lies irony. The planet is full of it, scattered through electronics, dental fillings, circuit boards, and satellite connectors. We discard tiny traces of gold every day while protecting the big bars in armored vaults. The same substance that runs through our technology also fuels our myths. It is both everywhere and untouchable, ordinary and divine. Perhaps that contradiction is why gold still feels human. It represents everything we want to believe about ourselves, that something pure and incorruptible can outlive our mistakes. But in truth, gold is only honest about what we project onto it. It doesn't promise stability, we do. And the more unstable the world becomes, the more we cling to that reflection. Sooner or later, every civilization finds a new symbol to believe in. Gold has lasted longer than most, but belief, like metal, can erode. Imagine a day when the price of gold stops moving. Not because the markets are closed, but because no one is watching anymore. The world has shifted its faith elsewhere, to code, to carbon, to something invisible yet instantly measurable. Vaults stay sealed, untouched. The bars inside slowly lose meaning, like relics from a forgotten religion. Economies continue to function, powered not by scarcity, but by speed. In this quiet future, gold is no longer a sanctuary, it's an antique. Governments begin liquidating their reserves, melting the past into memory. Jewelry stores shut their doors. Museums take in what once fueled empires. For the first time in 5,000 years, the world looks at gold and feels nothing. Some call it progress, a liberation from superstition. Others sense a hollow silence, as if a shared heartbeat has stopped. The collapse of belief doesn't come with riots or revolutions. It arrives softly, disguised as efficiency. Algorithms replace rituals. Data replaces weight. Trust migrates from vaults to virtual ledgers. And people, thinking themselves free, forget the comfort that came from something that did not change. In chasing innovation, They lose the only constant they ever had, the feeling that something would always hold its worth, even when everything else burned. Yet, not everyone adapts. A few still visit the vaults, just to see it, that dull, steady glow in the dark. They can't explain why. Maybe it's nostalgia. Maybe it's grief. Or maybe they understand that humanity never really stops believing. It simply changes what it believes in. Gold's fall from grace becomes a parable for the digital age, proof that even the strongest symbols can dissolve when the collective dream moves on. The end of belief isn't destruction, it's mutation. The metal remains, silent and perfect as ever. Only our reflection fades. Morning light spills into an empty vault. Dust drifts in the air, and a single coin lies on the floor, untouched. Its surface still gleams, indifferent to everything that has changed. Gold never cared about its believers. It never asked for worship or attention. It simply endured, waiting for us to notice what we had projected onto it. In that silence, it becomes clear. We were never chasing metal. We were chasing meaning. For millennia, gold reflected the best and worst of us, our hunger for permanence, our fear of loss, our need to find beauty in something that cannot die. It has witnessed kingdoms rise, economies collapse, and generations forget the lessons of the last. It survived not because of its chemistry, but because it mirrored our psychology. Every ounce ever mined still exists somewhere, as if the planet itself refuses to let go of the story. Even in a world that no longer believes, gold remains a mirror for the human condition. It's the perfect metaphor for our relationship with faith itself. When we lose belief in one symbol, we immediately invent another. Data replaces gold. Energy replaces data. Influence replaces everything. The form changes. The hunger does not. Perhaps that's why, even in this imagined future, someone will always pick up that last coin, turn it in their hand, and feel a strange comfort. Not because it's valuable, but because it's real. Because it weighs something. Because it reminds us that belief, like metal, can be melted, reshaped, but never truly destroyed. Gold doesn't disappear when faith fades. It just stops pretending to matter. And maybe that's the most human thing about it. The moment we stop believing, we finally see it for what it always was, a silent witness to our endless search for permanence. In the end, gold was never the treasure. Faith was.